This is Matthew Kratters, Bitcoin University. Today I want to talk about whether Bitcoin is going to $250,000 per coin soon. There's been a lot of talk on Twitter, on X about this. Fred Krueger, for example, posting here, M2 exploding, the big print is here. And this chart looks like what we have is the global M2 money supply. That's the yellow. And what it has been done, what's been done to it is it's been forward shifted 90 days. That's why it says 90-day offset here. And then we have a chart of Bitcoin, which is the yellow and green candlesticks here superimposed on top of that. So again, this is actual M2 money supply data that's just been shifted forward. And when you do this shift, it looks like you see that there's a very strong correlation between Bitcoin's price and global M2 money supply. Luke Broyles posting something similar saying, please, I hope this data is wrong. I do not want $250,000 Bitcoin by summer. And again, we have the same chart. It looks like it's just a little larger and zoomed out. Price has trailed global money supply for about 90 days. Odds of going vertical have never been higher than right now. Printers running, just no impact yet. So I thought I'd take a look at this. First, for those who don't know, M2 money supply is simply the amount of money in an economy that's available for spending and investing. You have M1, you have M3, but in general, M2 is sort of the standard one that's looked at by economists. M2 money supply includes things like the physical currency in circulation, bills, banknotes, and coins, money held in checking and savings accounts, money market securities, mutual fund shares, time deposits like CDs, etc. So you sum all of these up for a given country, and that gives you the M2 money supply, and then you can chart it over time. So the question here is, has the global money supply been exploding? Because it certainly has not yet in the US, and the US dollar is obviously the global reserve currency, and that should have a pretty large impact on things like this. If we take a look at the M2 money supply chart, this is the 5-year chart for the US. And we can see when the Fed was tightening here, we got a little bit of a dip in the money supply, and now we're back off to the races, but just kind of a very slow incline here, getting close to breaking to new highs or almost at new highs. So what I did, now I couldn't find the data for M2 money supply. So what I decided to do instead was just to look at the top 10 countries by GDP. This is United States at the top, followed by China, Germany, India, Japan, UK, France, Italy, Canada, and Brazil. These are the largest economies in the world. So I figured what I could do is just look at these and see if there's any data in here that would make sense of the M2 money supply spiking. So we already saw US dollar here. Money supply fairly flat, just incrementally going up. Same for the EU. So this really covers things like Germany, France, Italy, etc. They should be captured in the EU money supply. And it looks very similar to the US dollar hitting new highs, maybe a little bit before the US dollar. So that's the Eurozone. We have the Chinese money supply, M2. This is just constantly going up, but it doesn't look like anything, maybe a little bit steeper slope than normal in 2025, but nothing that exceptional. Same for Japan. Japanese money supply, M2, seems fairly flat. UK money supply, if anything, it's off the highs from 2022 and maybe even turning downwards. Canadian money supply, M2, looks a lot like the Chinese money supply. Brazil money supply actually pulling back a little bit in late 2024 and then turning back up in 2025. And finally, the Indian money supply, M2. We can see here, this is an unbelievable spike going from 64, I'm not sure what the actual, this is billions of rupees, 64,000 billion rupees or whatever the index is, all the way up to 654. If we take a look at a bar chart, that'll make it a little bit easier to see. Here's the 5-year, here's the 10-year, and let's look at the 1-year. Obviously, this is probably what is contributing to that M2 money supply spike that we're seeing here. Maybe I'm missing something, but what I would say here, if we take a look at the currency, for example, US dollar versus Indian rupee, we can see as this chart moves down, that's the rupee strengthening against the US dollar weakening really since February of 2025. And this probably has a lot to do with the tariffs as well. So the rupee strengthening against the dollar weakening, no huge moves here as you would expect if there were a real pump in the money supply rather than just a change in how economists measure it. So nothing really happening in FX land. And we can see, of course, the US dollar as measured by the Dixie index. This is mostly the US dollar against the euro and the Japanese yen. US dollar been weakening since about the same point. So this would make sense, US dollar weakening against the euro and the yen, and then US dollar weakening against the rupee. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Indian money supply has not been increasing that much. This is just a bad data point, or the central bank there, or whoever is in charge of this data, decided to change the metrics and how it was measured. There's no evidence out there that the Indian money supply is pumping and the money printers are going out of control. So I think this is a fake chart. It tells us something that we really want to see, or maybe we don't want to see it if we're still stacking Bitcoin. It would be nice to have a little more time before it melts up to 250K. I think it's important to remember that Bitcoin will pump when it pumps. No one knows the hour when it comes to these things. So I would say don't waste your time with charts and hopium. Rather, spend your time, just stack as much as you can, and then get out there and keep working extra hard in the fiat mines so that you can keep stacking sats and be ready for liftoff when it happens. There are a lot of very bullish signs. Obviously, the current administration in the US is very pro-Bitcoin. We have MicroStrategy continuing to stack. We now have Jack Mallers' company 21 continuing to stack. We have all these corporate balance sheets loading up on Bitcoin, and the retail FOMO hasn't even arrived yet. So I think we're still fairly early in this. Again, I have no idea when Bitcoin will pump or when it will drop, and that's why I think it's very important just to hodl and to be in the market so you don't miss those moves. If you try to get too fancy and sell and then try to buy back, this is how people miss out on giant moves. And the people who did that when Bitcoin was around 5 or 10K, Bitcoin has never looked back. So I think it's important to just hodl, not try to time these things, and also be very careful looking at data. If you see something like this that just violates your intuition, it's probably a bad data point. If you want to take a look at all the various M2 money supplies from around the world, country by country, I haven't gone through all of these. I just did the major ones. But I'll put a link to this in the description notes below so you can do your own research. And again, it's very important as Bitcoiners to always verify and not to trust. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.